What up, though? It's your boy Dino. Just checking in with that Misfit gang, Misfit fam, gang. Just wanted to drop a video tonight, checking in with everybody, letting you guys know how the week went. Getting ready to packing to head up to see Ashley up in little town she lives in up there, and then we're gonna head over to Santa Cruz and go check out some areas, check out a couple places that we're gonna possibly rent. um, Looking to, like I said before in the other videos, we're looking to get moved by the end of the year. That's if everything works out. So we're excited. Super expensive up there, but we both have good jobs, and we make a decent living. So it's nice to have a partner that you can rely on, and like has the 100% the same mind frame as you, and wants to walk beside you instead of in front of you or behind you. It's nice to be a team. So with that said, I was just getting on here. Was talking to one of my buddies earlier, and was talking about a story of when we were younger. Like I've said in other videos, and I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing all the same old shit, but that's why I try to come with new content, not try to retell the same stories, especially on here. Other people's channels, it's kind of hard not to, because they haven't heard the story before, and like they want you to share your whole story. And so sometimes that's why I don't try to jump on too many people's channels, just because of that fact. I don't want to just keep retelling the same story. And a lot of you guys subscribe to all this same channels, Badger, and Prison Break Raw, JD over there, he's a real one. Josh is the shit. Josh is the one that actually gave me my starting platform to do this, and still stay in contact with those dudes. And they're all good dudes. But like I was saying, on this channel, like I want to be able to just give you guys stories from growing up that nobody else has heard, stuff that might not even have to do with it. It all generally has to do with addiction, just because I was always usually getting high or drinking or doing drugs or doing some sort of mind altering substance when I was doing these knucklehead dumbass things. So I guess it does have to do with addiction. And it's just a constant reminder of where I came from, and where I don't want to go back to, and where I'm headed. So, you guys know that I was born in Orange County. Came from a family of, drug addicts. My dad was an addict, my mom was an addict, and they're divorced. And when I was young, when I was 5 years old, my dad was a retired LA County sheriff, and you guys all know that. He broke his back on the job, battled with addiction for many years. And so I kind of bounced around as a kid, and went from Orange County into Palm Springs, up to Victorville for a year, and then finally landed up in Fresno, California when I was 10 years old. And me and my brother were always together. He was my sidekick. That was my roll dog. That was my best friend in the whole world. He is my best friend in the whole world. That's my number one. He could call it any second and I'll be there. And same with me. And growing up in Clovis and Fresno. Clovis is a suburb right outside of Fresno, a little small town. And a lot of people say they're from Fresno because nobody really knows where Clovis is. But Clovis is where, I spent the core years of growing up, and what kind of molded me into what I am today. And, growing up in Clovis, there wasn't a whole lot to do up there. It's a small town, predominantly white, middle to upper class. A lot of high school sports. So when you were in high school, it was cool because before the football games, they'd fly jets over the stadium. Before a football game, fireworks. It was a big event. It's kind of like Friday Night Lights, kind of like how Texas takes their sports. And so growing up there wasn't a whole lot to do. So it was drinking and fighting. or, chasing tail. And, those were the three things that I felt like I was pretty good at. So I started young. And when I was in high school, where a lot of my buddies in my same grade, we all played sports together, but they took sports seriously. I played sports to be with my friends and to be with homies and not be home after school because, my dad was usually gone, and he had multiple wives or, girlfriends or whatever. And so I just always wanted to be around my friends. So playing sports was my way to hang out with my buddies all the time and hang out with them longer after school. And so, but I didn't take it as seriously as I mean, when I was younger, up until I was about 15, until I started doing drugs, is when I really kind of started slacking in sports, and I was pretty good at it. And but I started hanging out with the older kids, and they were all kind of drinking at the time. I was 15 at the time, so I was hanging out with 17 and 18-year-olds, and they were kind of known as like the rough crowd of school. They were all still going to school at the time, but they weren't really, they were just kind of, I don't know, people considered them, I guess, the low lives, but I considered them my friends. I mean, they were my homies. And I was younger than all of them, but I always found myself like trying to make a name for myself. So I was always the kid that was like, trying to do the crazier shit so they'd respect me. In hindsight, it's so stupid to think that I was like trying to seek the approval of these guys that, at the time didn't really have a whole lot going on. A lot of them came from like broken homes, or, grew up in group homes, or came from families where, they had deceased parents, or no really kind of structured home life. And I was the same. I didn't have it either. Like I was free to go and do what I wanted. So that's what I did. And I remember right when I turned 16, I was hanging out with a couple older buddies, and they had an apartment already, and I was still living at home with my dad. And we had a 1988 big lifted red Suburban, and I was talking to my cousin about this actually last night about it. And I took out this red Suburban and went and picked up a couple of my buddies. They already had their apartment, like I said, and it was two of them. I think one was I think they were both 18 at the time, but there was a spot where we were able to buy alcohol down in Fresno, and it was called Scans. And it was, the reason they called it Scans is because it was across the street from this it was either an elementary school or like a junior high, and it was called Scandinavian. And so we would go down there, and they would use their fake ID, and we were drinking 40s at the time. This was back when it was like Mickey's or Oldie, whatever was the cheapest that would get you drunkest, the more drunk the fastest. And we went over, so in Fresno there is an airport, and it's decent size, but half of the airport is a naval air station. And they have jets that fly out of there, and it's a naval base. So we wanted to go drink and hang out and have the planes fly over us, when they're flying in, because the way Clovis Avenue kind of ran right next to the airport, and there was a line of bushes that went along that separated the fence of the airport from Clovis Avenue. But there was like a little service road, so you could drive around the backside of the bushes and park right there. And our whole thing, we were going to get up on top of the Suburban and just drink beers and have the planes like fly right over. We thought it'd be cool. And so we went over there, and we're drinking, we're getting our buzz on, and I drove, no care in the world of DUIs. Like, we didn't care about DUIs back then, nor did I when I got older either, which is stupid. But so we're over next to the airport drinking. It's the three of us, and one of them had a bright idea, like, because the lifted Suburban was high up enough where we were on top of it, where it was almost kind of level with the the barbed wire of the fence, of the top of the fence. So we were like, screw it, let's jump over, crawl over the fence, and let's go lay on the runway, and let's really have these planes fly over us. So, I remember being, kind of scared, like knowing in the back of my mind that this isn't just an airport, like this is a naval air base. Like if we get in trouble, we're getting in trouble. And but I was young, I was impressionable, and I said fuck it, and we jumped over the fence and took our I don't remember if we had a 12, I think we had 40s. So we each had a 40 in our hand, and I was buzzing at the time, and we ran out. It was ran across, it was short, like almost kind of like weeds, but it was super short. So we ran across that until the tarmac started, and then it was the runway, and it was before the runway, so we didn't go on the actual runway, but we were on the tarmac. And so we ran out there, and a big ass plane was coming, and when we ran out there, we all laid down on our back, and this plane's coming. You can hear this plane, and it was a good size, and I was in the middle, and I had one homie on this one side and the other homie on the other side, and we're all laughing, giggling like little freaking schoolgirls. And this plane's coming, and I'm kind of like looking around, and I see like tire marks, like of where these planes landed short, or I don't know what the hell, but there were tire marks, big ass tire marks, like rubber marks from these planes. And so, we're all laying there, and I'm pointing it out to them, and then I can see the looks on their face, and they're tripping, and this plane's getting closer and closer, and it feels like it's right above us, and it's probably, still a mile away, but it's getting closer and closer, and it's just rumbling. And got to the point where we couldn't even hear each other. We were talking, and I couldn't even hear the person. So I looked down to my left, and that homie beelines, he's already gone. Look over to the other side, he's already ghost, he's running off. He's like, screw this. So they both take off, and I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm here, I'm doing it. So I just closed my eyes and just held on as tight as I could, and that plane just came right over. It felt like it was 10 feet above me. And I just remember when it went, I could feel the heat off the jets or whatever it was. But I could feel the heat so much that I had a hat on. It kind of blew my hat back. And I remember freaking out, like jumping up, and we're all like, they came running back over to me, and we're laughing, we're pounding our beers. And I see these lights, and they're flying down like the runway, not the runway, but off to the side of the runway, and they're coming towards us, and they're coming fast. And so we take off running, and I was like, check it out, and they're like, dude, we're out. So we just take off. We dropped our beers, take off running. And the Suburban was probably a good 300 yards away, I would say, 300 to 400 yards away. And we're just booking it towards the Suburban, and these lights are coming, and they're getting closer and closer and closer. And finally they were kind of like 100 to 200 yards off to the sides, because they were coming down the road and we were in the weeds. But they're coming, they pass us, and they come and they hang a left on the service road coming right down towards the Suburban. So it like cuts us off, but they don't see us out there because it's super dark. So we all lay down on the ground, and we're sprawled out flat, and this Jeep pulls right up next to the Suburban and shines its lights on the Suburban, and it's looking inside, it's checking around. And we're all laying out there, and it sees that nobody's in there, so it turns its spotlight and shines it out into the field and just lights us up. They come flying across, and when they pull up, it's a Jeep, and it's got four, I don't know if they were National Guard or Navy or whatever, but it's military police, and they got M16 machine guns, and they got them pointed at us, and they're telling us, freeze, get down. And we're like, whoa, and they're, get on your knees, So we get down, we had to cross our legs, hands behind our head, and this was my first real encounter with any kind of police or any kind of authority like this. And I'm freaking out, And the first thing I'm thinking is like, oh shit, my dad's gonna whoop my ass. And so, they come over and they're like, what the hell are you guys doing? They separate us and they're asking us questions, and they're like, what are you doing out here? And we were telling them the story, oh, we just want to come land. And they're just looking at us like, do you know how stupid that is? Do you know this is a naval air base? Like, we could charge you federally. Like, this will be on your record forever. And so I'm like tripping out, and so they walk us back over by the Suburban. By this time, they call the local police. Well, it was Fresno County Sheriff, so they come pulling up. They're on the other side of the fence. They drive us down, open up like a service gate, pull around, and we're right there. And when they drive us down there and open up the service gate, my dad and my stepmom were already there. I don't know if they ran the license plates and they called, or how they got a hold of them, but my dad was already there. And and he's got that look, man. And anyone that knows my dad, he could just shoot that look at you, and like, you done fucked up. And so we pull up, we get out of the car. My dad talking to the sheriff officer. He's talking to one of the military policemen. They're over there kind of talking, and my dad's got his retired sheriff's badge, and they're kind of laughing and, shooting the shit. And he shakes both their hands. He's like, all right, thanks, guys. And I remember the military police walking by and going, you guys just got lucky. And I'm thinking like, oh, okay, Big Dean, worked his magic. He like got us out of it somehow, and that's what he was good at. He was very good at being able to manipulate situations, and he was a charmer. That's how he succeeded in life. And anyone that knows him knows that Big Dean could get whatever he wanted. And so I remember my stepmom driving the car that her and my dad came in. She drove it home, and my dad drove the Suburban because they had told him that we had been drinking. We get in the car, he doesn't say anything, and I just know, like, my two homies get in the back seat, I'm in the passenger seat. We get in the car and we start driving home. He doesn't say one word. And finally he asked one of my buddies, where do you live? And he told my dad, the apartment complex. And we were driving, and he asked me a question. I forget what he asked me, but I don't know if I didn't answer it fast enough or he didn't like my answer. I just remember him reaching over and just backhanding me, just whack, right in the ear, man. And my ear was just ringing. I could just tell like he wanted to fuck me up. And I heard my buddies, both my homies in the back seat, because they're adults at the time. Their parents didn't get called, They released them to my dad, and my dad took responsibility for him. And they kind of chuckled, My dad had never met him. And so we pull up to the apartment complex, and my dad gets out of the front, or my dad's in the front seat, and both my buddies get out. And my one homie whose apartment it was, he walked around the car and he came up to the window and he kind of whispered to me, and he was like, hey, if you need a place to stay tonight, just come back here. Because he thought, like, dude, your dad's gonna beat the shit out of you, and if you need to get away, dude. And I'm thinking in my head, like, dude, my dad knows where you live now, and if I'm missing, this is the first place he's coming back to, and you don't want him coming back here pissed off, because he has no shame, dude. He'll come in butt naked with a robe open with a handgun and just pistol whip everybody, not giving a fuck. Like, he was crazy like that. And so I remember my dad going, what'd you say to him? And he's like, oh, nothing, Mr. Hargrove. And he like shimmied up the steps with my other buddy. And now it's just me and my dad in the car, and I'm like tripping. I'm not saying shit. I'm leaning as far as I can away from him because I don't want to get smacked again. My ear's ringing, dude. It's red as hell. Still ringing. And I remember we start driving away, and we're driving back home. And we're driving home, and I remember the brightest day, man. It was probably 11 o'clock at night, but I remember this brightest day. There was a cemetery, and we were driving past the cemetery, and I remember him asking me, you know, how did you meet those guys? And I was like, oh, they're my buddies from school. And he's like, oh, those are your buddies? Those are the guys you hang out with? They already have their own apartment, this and that. And I said, I had some kind of smart ass comment back to him, and he just reached over again to hit me. Well, this time I moved out of the way and he missed. And I remember opening the door, because we were kind of going slow. We were getting ready to stop at this light. And I remember opening the door and jumping out and taking off running. And I was running through the cemetery. And I maybe got 100 yards, and Big Dean chased me down. He was already on me. I was going to run back to my home because there was a canal on the backside of this cemetery that led all the way back to these apartments. And I was just going to go back to my buddy's apartments, not thinking that my dad would have just gone back there and grabbed me. But I remember him pushing me from behind. I ate shit on the grass, and he like smacked me around a little bit, drug me back he was an ex-cop, so he had all these fucking pressure points that he knew, and he had me by my ear, and he had it twisted, and he was walking me back to the car. It's like, get your ass back in there. I got in the passenger seat. He gets in the driver's seat. We start driving home, get back to the house. It was so weird too. Get back to the house, and he walks in, puts his keys down, sits back down on the couch, starts smoking a cigarette. My stepmom's like, oh, what'd you say? What, is he grounded? And my dad goes, no, he's not grounded. He knows not to do that again. And that was it. Like, never got in trouble, never got hit again. Well, not for that instance. But never got grounded once, never got in trouble with the police. Like, nothing ever happened with that. And I remember talking to my buddies a couple days later, and they were asking, like, dude, we got to go to court? Like, is this going to come back on us? Because they had been in trouble before. Is this going to mess with my probation? Because one of them was on probation. And I'm like, dude, I don't think so, man. And then so that kind of became the joke, like, oh, dude, Big Dean's got it. You might get your ass whooped, but Big Dean's got it. And that kind of set the precedent with me, knowing that, like, and I almost respected it in a way, like, dude, get your ass whooped. Like, you fuck up, you get your ass whooped, but hey, you lick your wounds and don't do it again. And I never did anything like that again. I mean, jumping over the fence at the airport and running out on the runway or anything like that. I did way dumber shit and different shit, and growing up, got caught for a lot of it, and Big Dean reacted in different ways, and that definitely wasn't the last time I got my ass whipped, and but that was definitely the first time I got my ass whipped, and I'll never by Big Dean, and I'll never forget that, man. And it was funny, he must have told my mom, because him and my mom were divorced at the time, and I remember coming down to my mom's. We'd come down for the summer, like when school was out, or come down for Christmas on Christmas break. And my mom's gangster too, and we came down for Christmas, and it was a couple months after that, and we were all standing out in front of the house at my aunt's house, and all my cousins were around. We were all laughing, joking, and a plane was flying over, and my mom was like, oh, Dino, you want to go run and jump on the runway and watch that plane fly over you? And she started laughing, and I'm like, oh, dude, so Big Dean must have told you, huh? Dad told you. And she just started laughing, and she's like, you're an idiot. I was like, yeah, no, I ain't the smartest one, but yeah, I have a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys a story and kind of let you know, like, how I was when I was younger and being a knucklehead and running around. There wasn't a whole lot to do, so I feel like that's kind of what, got me led into drugs and being bored and hanging out with the wrong crowd. And it's kind of crazy, like the paths that your life takes you and where you end up. And I love being able to look back on these stories and laugh and have a sense of humor about it. And I really do feel like that's the only way and best way to deal with trauma or any kind of bad shit that happened in your life. And I mean, you don't have to glorify it or make jokes about it, but for me, like, it I don't look at it as like, hey, I didn't kill anyone, I didn't hurt anyone, I didn't rape anyone, I didn't do any kind of shady shit like that. I was just a knucklehead kid having fun. And I wasn't a bad kid. I mean, I got into a lot of trouble, but like my core values and my morals and everything, like, I wasn't a vindictive, like, wanting to hurt people. But you know, did I hurt people doing drugs and becoming a drug addict and break my family's heart and stuff like that? Like, absolutely. So I don't know. I don't know what's necessarily better. I mean, being an addict and not knowing you're hurting people like that, or actually just being vindictive and hurting people on purpose. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to share that story with you so you guys get to know me a little bit better, know where I came from, and I want to try to put out more content. And I know I keep saying that, and you guys must think like, oh, this dude, he ain't putting shit out. He's, we won't see him for a couple weeks. Like, I promise, I'll be on here every couple days. This weekend I won't, just for the pure fact that I'm gonna be out of town up with Ashley, and trying to find a place and lock a place in. But I'll check back in with you guys, earlier next week, and let you guys know how house hunting went. But yeah, I just want to get on here and tell you a little something. But I'll talk to you later. All right, later.